I knew this lovely woman in her early 40s stuck in a loveless marriage to an abusive, violent, alcoholic guy. I met her just as she was beginning to wrench herself free. She finally did and celebrated with a whole Renaissance makeover. She started taking classes. She got braces and flashed them with a broad smile, thrilled like she had just taken off tight shoes. Within a few months, though, she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. I saw her twice after that. The first time she was in a panic. We talked for a few hours. She said she couldn't stop fretting over whether she had been a good person or a bad one. I get that. Even though I've been a lifelong atheist, when I'm down, I imagine Judgment Day. I even coined a term for it, eschatophobia, fear of Judgment Day, the compulsion to live for a summary, last breath thumbs up or thumbs down. Anyway, I said I could only imagine how it must feel, by which I meant I wasn't in her situation and therefore couldn't claim to know how it would feel. Still, I said if my end was coming, I hoped I wouldn't get distracted by whether I was a good or bad person. I hoped I'd be able to distract myself with some self-improvement project, because that's all there is, however much time we have. I love this gospel song about it. It makes me cry every time. A saint is just a sinner who fell down but got up. Through her tears, she said she wished she'd had a good marriage. I didn't see much prospect of that. I meant a different kind of improvement project. Of course, I didn't say that. The last time I saw her was at her wedding. The groom was a tall, thin, gentle soul with sad eyes. It was in his living room. She was too sick to sit up. She died the next day. That story is more pat than I like to tell, but it's a true story and apt for how I think about hope in these hard, maybe even terminal times. Trumpism is a cancer of the checks and balances, as all cancers are. His policies aren't the cancer. The cancer is his monarchical demand for total fealty and the Trumpy suckers who've fallen for it like sycophant wannabes in Louis XIV's court. Checks and balances aren't Trump's thing. He demands unchecked power, just like cancer. Again, nothing to do with his politics, which from what I can tell are at best a lifestyle brand. A leftist like Maduro in Venezuela or Stalin in Russia is the same cancer. It's a common cancer. Checks and balances are fragile things, very likely to topple toward unchecked runaway dominance. Well, we've got MAGAnoma now, cancer of the body politic, and the question is what to do about it. I read the comments on my videos. People who recognize the cancer are saying things they might have said a decade ago. Very predictable things. Name-calling, finger-pointing analysis from the impotent sidelines. It's capitalism, it's the media, all of which is true. A lot of hand-wringing and outrage. A lot of pat recommendations about just weathering what's coming because there's just no talking to Trumpies. Occasionally, though less these days, blind, self-reassuring optimism. Like if I had said, "You'll get through this," to my friend. These are things I've done too. Early on, I coined tantrumplicans. Today, I coined MAGAnoma. But with checks out of balance as they are, all of that stuff we're doing is proving impotent. Maybe doing the same stuff over and over is the best we can do, even if it isn't enough. It's therapeutic to do it anyway. It makes us feel like good, not bad people. But me, I don't want to just take refuge in pious failure. If this is terminal, I still want my projects of self-improvement. In particular, improving how I keep checks in balance, how to thwart the cancer. I'm an optimist like an oncologist. For greater well-being, I study illness. I want to go down trying new things that maybe have a shot at thwarting dictatorship, no matter what the lifestyle brand. I see this crisis as motivating and not just to keep hammering away with tired but true strategies. I don't want to go through ritual motions that make me feel like I'm making a difference. I want to make a difference. The best we can do with crises is stretch and learn. That would be a deeper therapy than feeling like good people because we bleat truth to power. When I get anxious, the only therapy that has worked for me is curiosity and projects. Something new to learn, some attempt at self-improvement. When I have curiosity projects, I wake up eager to get to them. My approach to anxiety is the opposite of what we're getting from the Tantrumplicans. Their coping strategy is a noping strategy. They wake up eager because they have a surefire formula for saying no to curiosity. They're only curious about how to say no more effectively. And they do have a project that makes them feel like good, not bad people. Trumpies won, which must be very affirming for these anxious lemmings. In my last video, I talked about the therapeutic benefits of fiction, especially the most common kind. The hero perseveres and wins in the end. We all lap that stuff up by the bingeful. It teaches that perseverance always furthers. If at first you don't succeed, try again. It's always darkest before the dawn. Though, of course, dawn is a sure thing, but it's also darkest before death. I figure that because it's always darkest before death, we need all the encouragement we can get. And yes, often perseverance furthers. I mean, just look at Trump. He's like the Energizer bunny, energized by anxious lemmings who pretend reality is a summer blockbuster and that it doesn't matter what you win so long as you win. But we do a liberal Energizer bunny thing too. We keep grinding away with the same messages delivered the same way, hoping our perseverance will eventually turn things around. If we just keep at it, the Trumpies will eventually see the error of their ways and drop their fatuous fad. Then, just like in the movies, everyone will realize that we, the heroes, were right all along. Though actually, I suspect we do the same stuff over and over because we can't think of what else to do and don't even look for anything because doing the same stuff over and over makes us feel like good people, not bad ones. What we're doing is tried and true, but tired. That it's true isn't enough. It's not working. So my curiosity project is trying to find something that is still truer, but not tired. My curiosity project is a question, not an answer. How to humbly humble humans who will say and do anything to avoid human humility. That's fun wordplay, for me anyway. But I mean something basic and universal. Humans don't relish human humility. We'd like to feel exceptional, even exceptionally humble. Decent folk watch out not to get too swell-headed. People like Trump figure out the formula. Become hero-botic, robotically playing hero no matter what. Drop all human humility. Portray absolute confidence no matter the consequences. Everyone would like to feel like that. Some folks peel off and join the hero-botic movement. They become perma-firmed, permanently affirmed. No deed too dirty for saints like them. They humble themselves before their Lord and lord it over everyone. While such hero-botic movements insist they're exceptional, they're just a common cancer that eats away at the checks and balances of our ambivalent hearts, minds, and democracies. Their supposedly exceptional ideals are nothing more than lifestyle brands. Branded left, right, religious, spiritual, or philosophical, they're all doing the same thing. If the checks and balances that democracy depends upon are ever going to become less fragile, we're going to have to get better at protecting against people who will say or do anything to pretend they're always the blockbuster heroes. That's what I mean by humbly humbling humans who will say and do anything to avoid human humility. And it's got to be a humble humbling, or else you're just the next absolutist hero bots. I love this curiosity project for self-improvement. It's appropriate in the darkest days before dawn or death. People get complacent when the pressure's off. I know I did. Part of me bought into the TV heroism of American exceptionalism. We were the good guys. We won all the wars. We were an enlightened country. Strategy didn't matter because we were Americans. The U.S. was a bold but imperfect experiment with heartbreaking results. What if you start a country on practically virgin territory, provide free liberal arts education to all citizens, separate church and state, and promote the American dream? Will people develop immunity to monarchy? The result of that experiment? Not a majority, which makes my curiosity project that much more pressing. The U.S. was a deeply flawed experiment, given genocide and slavery for 12 generations rationalized by Christianity. In a way, the American dream died when John Wilkes Booth assassinated Lincoln, who would have instated something like a Marshall Plan for the Deep South. The Civil War was a Pyrrhic victory that we assume humbled the Confederates. This week, the American dream lost every war it ever won, against monarchy, theocracy, racism, fascism, and dictatorship ornamented with a communist lifestyle brand. For anyone who cared, the path of least resistance is to give up, declare ourselves the good guys, and take refuge in pious failure. I'm suggesting the harder but more interesting alternative. Get curious and keep experimenting with ways to humbly humble humans who will say and do anything to avoid human humility. I start from the assumption that Trumpies will yawn at anything we do, or feign shock, or whatever keeps curiosity at bay no matter what. Whenever I experiment with other things to try, I hear from Trumpy trolls proudly dismissive of it, like tykes who have figured out that they can say boring or throw a tantrum in response to anything they don't want to hear. And I hear from liberals who say what I'm trying won't work because there's no talking to a brick wall. I get it. Again, absolutists have only one goal: to make sure nothing works. I operate on the assumption that the only thing cultists like the Trumpies remain curious about is how to block any threats to their incuriosity. That's why they watch Fox, to learn more dismissive talking points. They're studying, but only how to avoid ever having to learn anything ever again. When they cry, freedom, like they're Mel Gibson in Braveheart, that's what they mean. They demand freedom from ever having to be humble enough to learn something new. I start from the assumption that nothing we try is likely to work. Still, if we keep doing the same old stuff, the Trumpies have a point. It's like we can't think of what else to do, so we recycle our good guy scorn at their bad guy immorality, hoping that our perseverance furthers. We make up new schoolyard taunts, we track and tisk the news, we share our proud dream of a safer, saner America. There's no shock value. It's not newsworthy. Trump may have won on nothing but monotonous shock value that keeps him in the news. Not that long ago, the progressives were the innovative disruptors. That was sort of our mantra: adapt, stay nimble, try new things. We've lost that advantage to the Trumpies. They keep coming up with new shock and awe. It's monotonous, it's boring and irritating, but it still shocks us that Trumpies would stoop so low. Our response, though? The same old predictable stuff. We become like the parents that teens ignore. We have fresh proof. Trump won in part because Harris's vision for a better world and a billion-dollar war chest was the same old, same old. Even with Taylor Swift and Beyonce. I wouldn't be surprised if they came away feeling like they'd been dusted in stale hope, which is not their brand. I'm experimenting with how to deal with Trumpists and with anti-Trumpists who are hammering the same old, same old. I'm reading lots about strategy. Last week, a book on how to reach out and build affinities with the opposition. This week, a book on strategic warfare. If you get interested in this curiosity project, come join the free study group that formed around my videos. Just email me. I'll sign you up. We meet every other Sunday to explore what best to try next and what we've tried. I hope you'll join us. Now that the threat that has loomed over us has materialized, it's time to fuck around and find out what works better than the same old, same old.